Ladies and gentlemen, with just over 100 hours played in Khazan, with the Greatsword being my main weapon of choice throughout the entirety of my playthrough, I wanted to give an in-depth beginner's guide to create an extremely powerful Greatsword build, and I gotta say, it was an absolute delight to play. And remember to hit that like button and subscribe to keep up to date on all the upcoming games that you're not gonna want to miss. So starting off, I wanted to go over all the core, most important, can't leave home without type of skills. The Greatsword has a very charged base, heavy playstyle, so when you start getting into this weapon, you should be looking for the skills that'll give us different charged effects. Starting off, we have Savage Momentum. This is simply replacing our standard swift attacks, allowing us to now charge it for a little bit of extra damage. This allows us to open up on the target with the charged attack. That will then lead us into chaining even more charged attacks. The next ability is Phantom Knight's Veil, and it's one of the most important abilities to take as it does respectable damage, but the main thing to consider here with this ability is the buff we receive from it. This makes it so that any charged attack we do is going to emit this wave from our character that's going to do some damage, but more importantly, continuously stagger our enemies. So this is what allows us to maximize our damage potential, since this gives us the freedom to chain more abilities together. Now, the last ability that really brings this all together is Heavy Pressure. This decreases the charge time of all of our charged attacks. So this is going to be your connector from your opener to your potent blow, into maybe a special ability like Phantom Veil, into another charged attack that will now be dramatically quicker to get off due to this ability. Now, these core abilities alone will fully unlock your playstyle and just bring everything together. Now, before we continue from what I consider being those core abilities, Mortal Blow dishes out what I would consider some of the best AoE in the entire game. However, there's a catch here. It kinda sucks until you go all the way down the tree fully, so I wouldn't recommend this skill until you're able to pick up the other nodes attached to it, since Mortal Blow Bloodshed is where the real damage comes from. I'm talking we're jumping from like 200 damage all the way up to 2000 damage from this singular upgrade. It's a massive difference to how powerful it is, while adding amazing AoE to your build. Mortal Blow Nascence is key as well, allowing for quick dodges to get into combat, and then we're able to release that powerful blast, and it's just a fantastic trash clearer. Now that we got the core skills situated, let's talk about the other additional skills that may not be worth picking up right away, but will be better off in the long run since you're going to have a lot of points to spare. The first skill I want you to be aware of is Overwhelm. Now, this increases the charge speed and the damage of your final attack in your combo, but I find we're using Savage Momentum and chaining that into other abilities way more often, especially in the early game. I would look to pick it up, but just don't make it a top priority skill. Grab this mid-game, or like I said, whenever you got some points left over. On that note though, Titanic Descent isn't bad early game, and is going to be one of your biggest damage output skills at the start. However, as you progress through the game, it starts to simply get outclassed by other spirit spenders like Great Hunt and Breakthrough, and we'll get to those in a minute, but if you get this at the start, you may as well get the connector node to get as much damage out of this as possible. Just know you will be and should be swapping this out as you get a little bit deeper into the game. And by the way, we do have the entire playthrough on the channel, so if you're looking for something to do or watch while you're going through your playthrough, feel free to check it out. Now, Combat Cadence and Helmbreaker are a must-have. These two skills is the way we're able to get into combat super quickly and close large gaps on enemies. Combat Cadence will open up with two swift attacks that can be chained together with Savage Momentum for some very quick and heavy damage output. Also a great option in AoE situations. While Helmbreaker closes large gaps on enemies and is more of our single target focused opener. And you're going to want to grab Onslaught, the connector node as well. Moving into the Potent Blow tree, Manifest Power is fantastic. It simply increases the reach of our potent blows. The more range we have, the better off we're going to be. Next up, and this one is a little bit iffy for me, is Ghost Arm Block. And I don't find it to be really worth our time, at least at the start, and let me explain. Most of the time, we're looking to be chaining our abilities together to get that benefit of the fast charge via Heavy Pressure. Now, if you find yourself just manually charging up Potent Blow without actually using it in a combo to get the benefit of Heavy Pressure, then yes, it may be a little bit better for you. But honestly, when I took this thing, I never used it and would end up just poising through whatever incoming damage was coming my way just to get the Potent Blow off anyways. On the other side of the fence, yes, it's only 1 point, so maybe take a look at it in the later game if you want, but like I said, I don't really feel like it warrants your concern right away. Moving on from that, Limit Break is insanely good, giving us extra levels of charged attacks at the cost of one additional spirit. This is absolutely fantastic, and there's no reason not to take these skills. Heat of Battle gives us more poise and reduces the damage we take while attacking. We're definitely taking that. And Indomitable is super good, increasing the damage of our charge attacks even further if we take damage while we're charging it. It also gives a certain amount of spirit back depending on how much damage you end up taking during your charge. Heavy Pressure we already touched on, it's fantastic. And the 2 shouts, we're not going to be investing points in any of those. War Cry I found gives about a 20% damage decrease, which is okay at best. Yeah, if you're going with like a tanky armor set, then maybe it's going to be worth stacking this up with it. And it does give you some increased poise damage out of the deal. But for the sake of this video, I don't really think it's worth it for me, and I don't want to recommend it to you. Same exact thing with the other shout, Inner Fury. I personally just wasn't a fan of this ability. You do get some solid AoE out of it, doing some decent damage. But the buff that we receive, again, increases our charge attack speed, but we kind of already have that covered with Heavy Pressure. And I feel like it's a little bit of a waste when it comes to points, because you need to sink like 4 points into this thing when we already have this thing covered with 1 point in Heavy Pressure. You know what I'm saying? It's just not doing it for me. So this leaves us with our main spirit spender skills and passives. Phantom Night Veil we already spoke on already. This should be one of your first skills you end up picking up. Nothing else to be said about that. It's an absolute core ability, and it's needed for your build to function. Next on our list is Giant Hunt, and this is going to be our go-to damage ability. This does great damage against bosses and even better damage against larger bosses. It has the ability to get the weak point damage multiplier from hitting enemies in the head. The connector node is pretty sweet as well, giving us additional strikes and gives us a bit of a forward lunge to the ability. I wouldn't define this as like a gap closer or anything, since it's pretty small, but it's more for the extra damage we get on our way up the target before we hit that weak point and get that big final hit. All in all, a very well-rounded ability. Talking about Furious Swipe, not only is this a fantastic engagement tool, but if you time it properly, it becomes completely free to use. It's stronger than the regular dodge attack, and once we get the connector upgrade to it, we could then use it to just chain into our full opener combo. So it's kind of like another core ability, but just on the spirit spender side of things. Now, our last spender that is very similar to Mortal Blow in the way that it gets very good, but more towards the end when you start picking up all the connector nodes, is Breakthrough. This in the early game only really helps to shrug off some damage and get a hit in. Then when you get the next node, we'll be able to follow that up with some additional damage. But even just going down the tree and getting Breakthrough Rising, the damage of the ability still really isn't anything that's going to blow your socks off. It's actually going to be our weakest spender until we go all the way down the tree to Breakthrough Limit. Once we get access to this, it does a full 360 and it becomes our strongest ability. This drastically increases the damage output of the ability when we shrug off damage in the middle of it. So I really don't suggest scooping this thing up early, but once you get far enough that you can unlock the whole tree, send it. Jumping into the passives, Armor Break is our fantastic counter option. This can end up chunking just a ton of health and a ton of stamina off enemies. It's extremely good for a 1-point investment. And later on, once we get Heart Piercer, which is 3 points to get that charging speed ramped up, and yes, we do need this, it essentially gives us like a free heavy attack follow-up. But something that needs to be mentioned about this is that Heart Piercer has huge interrupt potential. And with that, it makes it much better than what it even says on paper. Jumping into the passives, the first 2 that we need to mention is Extreme Dodge and Solid Stance. These are our core passive abilities. So anytime we brink dodge or brink guard, they both provide us with stamina recovery. And then we're going to move over to Seething Blood, and this will just further amplify those effects, making it a must-have point investment as well. And we're obviously going to be taking Avenger, allowing us to deal damage from our break guard. We want defense stamina, reducing the stamina consumed when guarding to simply allow us to guard more often. And then defensive spirit increases the amount of spirit gained from successful brink guards. All very important to our core gameplay mechanics. Now, the last thing we need to touch on is Counter-Strike, and here's my take on it. Counter-Strike acts just like a brink guard, but the idea behind it is you either do like a quick Counter-Strike with it, or you can hold it and let it out at the right time. And I have a slight dilemma with it, because we already have brink guards, brink dodges, we have reflections, we have counterattacks, and my brain just can't take all the options here. It kind of feels like there's just too many cooks in the kitchen, so I personally don't take it. But to ask you simply, do you want more defensive options? If you say yes, then sure, take it. It's not bad. But any more than we already have for me is just a little over the top. With that being said, let's move into the best and most recommended Greatsword sets, starting from the early game. The first mention would have to be the Chaos Ridden set. This set comes from Malusa, however you want to say it, which is like the 6th or 7th boss, and it's a very defensive oriented set with having an extremely powerful spirit dump ability, on the 6th set bonus. I'm a huge fan of this set. It gives us a static health regen after brink guards, which, keep in mind, doesn't go away. So if you brink guard something and you end up just like exploring the area, your health is going to continuously regain until the next time you take damage. The 3 set shows multiple brink guards get us a damage increase stacking up to 5 times, so getting a 20% damage buff. The 4-piece set gives us extra spirit accumulation with those brink guards. We also get spirit skill consumed, which increases the stamina damage and spirit gained. And last but not least, we get volcanic wrath, which is a very big spirit spender. So this gives us a way to accumulate spirit quickly, and we could dump it off even quicker with volcanic wrath, as it gives many strong quick strikes. It's a very solid set that rewards you for being defensive and allows you for a great offensive potential with that spirit dump on top of it. And early on, I think it's one of the best Greatsword sets in the entire game. The next set I highly recommend going after, and what I used for majority of my playthrough, is the Crimson Fiend set. This is a very high risk, high reward offensive gameplay set and functions heavily around Mortal Blow. It's lightweight, so you're not going to have the protection like we did in the last set we spoke about, but it gives you an enraged damage increase, so anytime that we're under 50% stamina, we get a nice damage buff. The 3 set gives a 10% charged attack damage bonus. Your Mortal Blow and charge attacks get stamina recovery, and Mortal Blow itself gets an additional 20% damage increase. This set does not come from a boss, but in the mid game, you're going to be sent on some side missions and you could just find the whole set. Soon after that though, you're going to find the recipe and you'll be able to craft this thing at the blacksmith. But this was and still is one of my favorite sets until like very late game when you come across the next set, which is the Flesh Ripper set. And this thing I am all about and would strongly say that this is the best Greatsword set in the game. You get this from fighting Hismar. So like I said, it's a bit later in the game, but the big bonuses here is the 15% more charged attack damage, 15% charged attack stamina damage. Also, everything we do is a charge attack, so it's pretty much like a flat 15% stamina and damage increase across the board. We also get Limit Break Apex, and when your weapon gets to epic rarity, we also get Phantom Thanos Wave. And this gives us an additional layer for our charged heavy attacks, which just puts out absolute massive damage potent blows. And the Thanos Wave gives us even more damage accumulation as we build up for this massive upfront hit. I cannot stress how powerful these 2 additions are. From the Phantom Waves and the Apex skill, we're looking at about a 90% damage increase just to your standard potent blow. And this is why I say, hands down, it's one of the best sets in the entire game for Greatsword. The last thing I guess we should talk about are stats. There are 2 soft caps to keep in mind here. The first one's going to be at 30, and then there's one at 60. So in general, I would focus on leveling strength, endurance, and health equally. Also, honestly, in this game, it's not really worth putting points into your secondary damage scaling stat because the returns you get from dodge stamina cost decrease are going to be incredibly negligible, comparing it to what you're going to get from your gear itself. So I really don't think it's worth investing in cross stats in this game at all. Once you hit 30 with all your stats, then look to hit 60 with health, then endurance, then strength, with those being the priority. Then after 60, pump health and strength as much as possible, and from there, you're going to be good to go. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and over the weekend, so feel free to stop by and leave any questions or comments down below. And if you're looking for something else to do, feel free to check out some of these playthroughs coming up on your screen next. Toodles!